speaker, Sarah Renero. Give her a big room of applause. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmates, Jennifer, our guest. As Lynn mentioned, the title for my speech today is MEDC's Brownfield Program. And my general goal for today is to discuss how Brownfield Redevelopment is administered by the MEDC. Specifically, I wanted to talk about two items. First, I wanted to give you a general overview of MEDC's structure, specific to brownfields. And then second, I wanted to talk about the process for projects coming in. First, let's talk about MEDC structure. The MEDC administers two incentives specific to brownfield redevelopment in the state of Michigan. First is the Brownfield MBT tax credit. This is a tax credit that ranges from 12.5% to 20% and is ultimately based off of eligible investment that a qualified taxpayer makes on a project. These things can include new construction, renovation costs, demolition costs, and even machinery and equipment. The second incentive is Act 381 work plans. And what that really means is these are approvals that reimburse the costs for eligible activities through tax increment financing. And what that means is, like the MBT covers eligible investment, demolition, new construction, the work plan covers eligible activities, site preparation, grading and balancing, due care activities, meaning you can contain your contamination if appropriate on a site, things of that nature. The governing body at the MEDC for the Brownfield program is the MEGA Board, the Michigan Economic Growth Authority. This board meets monthly, and depending on the incentive we're talking about, projects may either go to the board or they may just be signed off at the chair level. The MEGA Board chair for us is Greg Main. Now that you have a better idea of MEDC's structure for the Brownfield Redevelopment Program, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process for new projects coming in. We have a community assistance team in place that really serves as our frontline staff support for projects that want brownfield incentives, specifically the MBT and tax increment financing. This team is made up of 5 individuals that are located regionally across the state and cover, obviously, the different regions. Excuse me. I lost my train of thought here for a second. The community assistance team ultimately is the front end, where Eric and I, who's my counterpart at the MEDC, are really the back end support and work through projects as they come in the door and make it through the board process. How do we get to this point from beginning to end? Ultimately, the CAT team would go to have a site visit with the applicant. This is where the determination would be made whether the project has legs for our incentives, and ultimately the CAT team would bring the project into the MEDC and take it to the Brownfield packaging meeting. The Brownfield packaging meeting is a meeting that we meet weekly, Mondays at 1 o'clock, and we really review projects to determine whether we want to invite them for a complete application. At this meeting, we ask 4 questions. What is the project? What do they want? What is the local support? And how does the project qualify? Let me give you an example. How many people are familiar with the former Cedar Street School in Old Town? It's right next to the Temple Club. You can picture up. Oh, okay. So you can have a good mental picture here. This is a project that came in last summer, as in the summer of 2008, and we went through the 4 questions. What is the project? This was an old building where we had a doctor, late 50s, I would say, that wanted to ultimately have their own medical firm in this building. It's 4 floors. They wanted to renovate the building and occupy 2 of the floors and rent out the remaining space. They were seeking LEED certification, which is Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design, and ultimately tells us that they're definitely incorporating sustainable elements into their project. What do they want? They wanted a 20% MBT credit, and they also wanted the approval of school capture for tax increment financing. What was the local support? The local support, what did they want? They also wanted, on the 20% credit, it was based off of $2.5 million of eligible investment. Let's get to what was the local support. The locals had approved for local capture of tax increment financing, and they also agreed to an OPRA designation, which ultimately freezes the property taxes for up to 12 years. Finally, how does the project qualify? And this is a big old building, and they were qualifying it as functionally obsolete. There's 3 ways you can qualify a brownfield. Functionally obsolete, a facility, which oftentimes means contaminated, and also blighted, which you can think of abandoned structures that are just sitting idle. This project, specifically the former Cedar Street School, was qualifying as functionally obsolete, and they had their assessor letter in hand that proved that claim. Ultimately, this project was approved for a $2.5 million MBT credit with 20%, and also a work plan for up to $428,000 in reimbursement for eligible activity costs. Hopefully you have a better idea of the Brownfield Redevelopment Program that the MEDC administers.